Oh, hey you. It's Kat and Steve with the Positively Midwest podcast.
Well, hello there. Now, before this next episode, let's talk about sharing our mission.
To help, we have hooked up with Anchor.fm to help us keep launching Positively Midwest to as many ears as possible. The more we expand our reach, the more lives we can help inspire.
If you haven't heard of Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Bonus, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Well, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and many more.
You can make money with no minimum listenership, which helps our cause.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in just one place.
So go now, download free Anchor app or go to anchorapp.fm to get started.
Now, sit back and enjoy the next episode of the Positively Midwest podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Positively Midwest podcast. My name is Steve Jurrens, and across from me this time as well, and as usual, is my lovely wife, Kathryn.
Thank you for having me.
Most definitely, the show's just so much better with you.
Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure. What does everyone else think?
Crickets. That's a bad sign.
Huh. Weird. Well, anyways, so we are creeping on episode number 86 of Positively Midwest. And that's pretty exciting.
I cannot believe how long it's been. I was actually just thinking of that. Whoa, it's been over a year and a half.
Yeah, and some days we're scrambling, some days we're set up, but I was working on some different interviews this evening, sending out emails and trying to get back into the groove of doing different interviews too. So those are always engaging, I feel. And so we've got some, I was talking to Indubious and psychologist for hoarding, and a guy from Switzerland we're going to interview in September. So we'll record him at 7:30 on a Friday, which will be 12:30 midnight his time.
Wow. And
do an interview. So Mr. Joyner's hooking us up with stuff still. So we thought with kids and going back to school time and all these kinds of things coming around, Mrs. Jurrens came up with the idea, if you will, to look at the arts in school and why the arts are considered important. It's definitely something I think that we have a passion for. Of course, Kathryn is a co-owner of an artistic business, doing artistic things with people in an artistic fashion, crafting, arting. And so our kids inevitably do enjoy some art and music as well. So this just kind of says the arts. So I believe it does touch on some music and whatnot too. But I found a facts and figures page, if you will, from miarted.org. So anyways, it looks neat.
Let's do this.
Yeah, so they say here the arts are motivating. Students who are involved in the arts are 4 times more likely to participate in a math and science fair. Why is my license out, by the way, this old one?
I don't know. I was wondering if you realized that your license had expired, because usually you don't get to keep an old one.
Yeah, during the Rones, I renewed it, so this is my old one. I don't know why I kept it, because I'm a hoarder.
A little bit, but I honestly don't know why it's out.
Anyway, 3 times more likely to win an award for school attendance. There's some real life for you folks. 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. 3 times more likely to be elected in class office and succeed in work. 72% of business leaders say that creativity is the number 1 skill they're seeking when hiring.
Interesting. Yeah, so art, in the schools can be anything from, your typical art that comes to your mind of drawing, painting, sculpting, but it can go into your musics, your band, your choirs, and then it leads also into your drama and your theaters. They all fall under the art category. So I can definitely see where these kids that are engaged in some of these extracurricular activities in these ways are going to have a bigger boost of self-confidence, which is going to carry over into those other sections of life.
Yeah, and they students, obviously, who are excited by school stay in school. So students who participate in the arts, both in school and after school, demonstrate improved academic performance and lower dropout rates. Students with high arts participation and low socioeconomic status have a 4% dropout rate, 5 times lower than their low socioeconomic status peers.
Big words.
Yeah, I said it. Pretty much.
Yeah, the reason that I kind of had this idea come to mind is that, Gianna is, starting school again now next week, and we are discussing books of interest because, if you can find a book or a genre that your kid actually enjoys reading, it's like you have to get on the ball with that. And our kids struggle finding things that they actually enjoy that want to read. And so the book that we found tonight at one of those little free library stands that you borrow a book and then you take it and drop it back off. Mm-hmm. It is starting off by talking about the art teacher at the school. And these kids thought they were taking art to be able to be artsy, but instead she was teaching so much of art history in a sense. And so these kids weren't being fully engaged in the art aspect is what you would typically think of. And so now the teacher finally is grasping that it's not exciting them and giving them an assignment that's more engaging. So it's kind of like that same feel. And that's where I kind of came up with this, is because these kids are wanting to be engaged in a different mindset sometimes.
Yeah, low-income students who are highly engaged in the arts are more likely than their peers with low arts involvement to have obtained gainful employment, completed college, and volunteered in their communities. So, low-income students who are highly engaged in the arts are twice as likely to graduate college as their peers with no arts education. 37% earned a bachelor's degree versus 17%. 37% volunteered versus 20%. Succeeding in work. Interestingly, while employers say creativity is one of primary concern when they're hiring, 85% of those employers can't find the creative applicants they seek. So for dramatic arts, for instance, only 4% of high schools require this course, and 97% of superintendents say this course builds creativity. Of creative writing, 54% of high schools require this course, and 99% of superintendents say this course builds creativity.
Well, I can see where definitely the theater and those arts are teaching those kids that to be vocal, and that's going to be those that are wanting to be more active with speaking and being in the student councils and things like that, you would think, because they're already comfortable in speaking, and our girls, maybe Erilyn, gets nervous about that kind of stuff, speaking in front of people, but that's why we push her into the 4-H public speaking things, is for that same kind of retrospect.
Yeah, and they mention music, and only 17% of high schools require this course, but 97% of superintendents say that builds creativity. Studio arts, 7% of schools require this, and then 94% of superintendents say this course builds creativity. So to me, that shows that even the superintendents themselves, according to this survey, if you will, or information sheet, feel that builds creativity, which is what a lot of employers are searching for, especially I think in the age of digital marketing and Facebook marketing and anything that you do, really. I mean, you could be a salesperson for a shoe store and come up with an idea that completely changes how they do business. I mean, you never know. So 66% of public school teachers say that other subjects such as art, science, and social studies get crowded out by extra attention being paid to math or language arts. So that's one thing. Math is not a strong suit for me. I understand its importance, and I certainly rely on technology, but I could figure it out if I absolutely had to. So I think if you learn the basics of what most math is, and you're not going to be an engineer or whatever that doesn't use that kind of math, then I think funneling that child to something that they're drawn to. Now there's so many more opportunities in the world. They could move anywhere and do anything almost absolutely anywhere and make money if you're in the right crowd, surrounded by the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So can't be putting them all in little boxes.
Right. I do like that the middle school, like our 7th and 8th grade, where Erilyn attends, they require them to take one form of music, whether they're in choir or if they're in band. They can choose to do both, but they're required to take one. So if they're not going to be in band, they absolutely must take singing choir. It's a requirement. And I think it's great for engaging that opposite side of the brain than what just book learning does. You know, it's making sure that they're becoming a well-rounded individual. And then they get 1/4 of actual art class, because then they split it up between like robotics as the other quarter, facts, which is like life skills, and so personal finance, I think that was the other quarter kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly importance in that. So, you know, it's like finding a good balance, and I don't know anything about how schools operate or anything like that. And we never claim to be an expert about anything we do anyways, but, you know, it would be, it just seems to me, because we're more creative on that side, I guess in a sense, to see where curriculum could start to include, you know, in some of the positive psychology classes I've taken, they talk about positive psychology being entered into curriculum. And why don't we teach people, you know, we have all these giant marketing campaigns to teach our kids what not to do. And we walked around the school tonight and saw, you know, positive stuff all over the place, and be kind, and that was really actually what I'm talking about too. So it was cool to see. But for so long, they talk about like DARE, and they educate you on all the drugs and how bad they are and everything. But they found that through that, most kids learned how to do drugs that way, and it's almost backfired. But I mean, I'm sure it does help as well, because you kind of have to know what it is if you're getting peer pressured or something like that, and what the effects could be. So I don't disagree with education of any kind. Really, it's just, you know, if we can give our kids the tools to be more positive and optimistic and kind and thoughtful and compassionate, but while also showing them self-compassion, I think that's very important. You know, just put yourself in a position now of every year starting school again, and, you know, think of how scary it is to start a job. So you left a job and you started a new job, and you walk in there and you've got all these new people, and after a few weeks, you pretty much know people, and everything goes fine. Well, for these kids, you know, they have to do this every year. Yeah, there's kids that they hang out with, but if there's any that they don't get along with, or if there's any that give them trouble, or if there's uncomfortable situations every year, you know, they're walking back into that situation, and they're going through tons of hormones and mental changes and body changes and, you know, all these different things. So I know we've talked about in the past in other episodes how stressed our kids can get, but their level of anxiety too is very high. So I think now, like, we're at a point with our kids being 13 and a half-ish and 12 that we need to speak to them more, you know, like on a level playing field, so that they understand their feelings are valid for what they're feeling or what they're upset about. And, okay, I'm going to listen to you, I understand, instead of just trying to correct them all the time. And so I think, anyways, that whole thing comes full circle, because when we get them into school, you know, how we teach them to handle situations and how we teach them to focus on things. But just in the thing today, they have They can come in pretty early if they want to, and they can have breakfast, and they can have just social. So pretty much you could have 50 minutes of social community if you went there the earliest possible before the last bell rang. And then you have 10 minutes to get to your locker and stuff like that. I'm like, dang, man.
Well, and then they have homework help, so that no child falls behind, is that they offer extra help in the mornings and after school for free and things like that too. But, a lot of these kids turn to those artistic ways as like a stress reliever as well. Maybe going into art class or going into that they know what they're going to do for the day. And it's like, oh, this is going to be something that's not going to take as much brain power in a sense as maybe that really stressful algebra class that Erilyn has, that she's already kind of dreading, And so the arts are a form of relaxation. It's a time for her mind to unwind a little bit from the stressors of those other classes as a way to help keep them positive themselves instead of getting, bogged down with everything going on. But yeah, this school is really cool, and I always went to small town school, and, me, I don't know. I think in my head, I probably would have feared going to the big school, but looking back, I wish I would have maybe had the opportunity because, while, yeah, it's fearful you're walking in and there's going to be a whole bunch of kids that you don't know. And maybe there's kids not in your, circle or in your classroom that you hung out with before. But that's great for those kids that maybe had struggled making a friend last year with their group. Maybe there's a kid that needed to get away from a bullying situation. And so this is giving them opportunities for fresh beginnings. Like we talk about, every day is a new fresh start. Every day is the beginning of a new adventure that you can grasp onto and take. And so these kids are getting that in a class of 300 eighth graders. Maybe her same 20 circles, she'll have a class with every once in a while. She has more than that of 20, but it's so good for them if we're teaching them how to handle those circumstances positively, giving them the tools to be successful, and also making sure that they're able to tap into that creative. Is it the right side or the left side of the brain? Which side is it that's supposed to be?
Yep.
Yeah, making sure that they're tapping into both sides. Because I know there's some kids out there that love academics, right? They are very studious. It comes natural or they strive for it. It's just like, that's their jam. Make sure that your child, even if they're like all about the books and they love it, make sure that they are taking time for that other side of their brain just to help them. Because they might be putting too much pressure upon themselves.
Yeah, I think it's they even recently have come out with those adult coloring books because they just find that people can lose themselves in it. And I didn't have what I would call the patience to do one of those, but I had one. And I've colored like one or two pictures and they look kind of cool. And I can't say it was a bad experience. It's just something I didn't do again. Might actually even be sitting right over there. But anyways, I think in a class environment, and the younger you can start giving these kids practices or exercises that do generate some sort of a positive mindset or some motivation or inspiration or whatever, that really makes a big difference in the future of their life. So there are certainly a buttload of positive attributes to going to a small town school, and they're worth fighting to keep open and all that kind of stuff. That's certainly not, like our official statement per se. But, coming from a larger school, or I was about to go to one and then coming to a smaller one, it seemed like, and take this word for what it is, but like I had more opportunities at a larger school to do some of the things that I wanted to, because I'm a bit unique. But I made Cass would work for me in our small community, and my personality and all that, and I got along with people. But I could see where someone that doesn't have very strong social skills or a strong backing of social skills or examples, could be difficult in a smaller school, because it might be you only have 1 to 2 to whatever a certain amount of people to hang out with if you've only got 20 or 30 or 40 in your class. But if you have 300 in your class, more than likely at least 20, 30 people maybe are like you, or think like you, or do the things you like to do, or dress the way you dress, or whatever. So there can be some support in that and some camaraderie. So we, as we do, got off onto a whole thing based on the arts in education, but ideally it all does matter, because everything boils down to what you practice, what you exercise, what you consume visually, mentally, physically, and all of that makes a difference in what you become in the future. So let's start loading these little nuggets up with little mind nuggets and set them off on their way to be better. That's what our job should always be, is what can we do with our talents to leave behind whatever sort of legacy to make the world a better place. And if you're gonna have children, not necessarily do they have to have better than what we had, but they should be better than what we were. Right?
Yeah. I think, it's not like having in a material way a better. It's just, are we making sure that we're providing the best opportunities for them? Like making sure that you're keeping those doors open and our minds open so that they can achieve their own greatness.
They at least have to be educated and given the opportunities. If we don't even give them the opportunities, the colleges around our South Dakota area have classes now that are just crazy, So if Erin wants to go to culinary school, she can do that. If Gianna wants to be a YouTube star, she can go to school to learn how to build a business around it and how to produce shows and all these different things. Or, you can get stuff online too. But there are so many different opportunities where, I think our generation was starting to open up, where computers were in high schools, and even in a small school like ours, there was programs and you were learning how to use computers, and we were on the beginning sort of cutting edge for some things, downloading music, which turned out to be illegal, things like that. And then now the way you consume it, you can do it right in your hand, or you can link it to your TV, things like that. So at one point I can remember people saying things like, oh, unless you're like on TV, there's no way you could be an actor or on movie or something. Well, shit, now you can be on YouTube. And this kid that's 24 years old that we've talked about before made like $20 million or $15 million. And I hear this thing called YouTube automation that somehow, I haven't read about it, but it automates YouTube and people are making $100,000 a month off of it or whatever.
Isn't that crazy? It's so many times you hear the stigma that if a kid wants to be, kid tells their parent, hey, I want to be a musician. I want to be an artist. I want to be an actor. Like, what is the most, stereotypical parent perspective is like, oh, great, so you're going to be broke, right? You're not going to be able to do a living being in the art field. But that's so backwards now. I mean, the possibilities are completely endless as far as the arts and how they can take any form of art and turn that into their future. So it's finding a career that these kids like, and it all starts at the basics, making sure that we're keeping arts in our academics, and giving them that well-balanced view.
Well, and that's where you've got to step in too, I believe, as a parent, and set that example and give them some sort of a work ethic too. We know a lot of musicians in a sense, and these guys are cooking, they're working, they're driving semis, they're doing all sorts of stuff, and then they're traveling around to to play all their music on top of that, or go to art shows or whatever they're doing, So these people might have a quote unquote regular job, but they're also putting their heart and passion into their art, whatever that is, music, art, sculptures, whatever. And I don't know, maybe someday you just blow up. But anyways, positivity of arts in school.
Yeah.
Cool, huh?
Now I got to go look at Erilyn's schedule. Now I'm curious. I know she was listing all the basics.
Okay.
Now I got to go peek. See if she gets to take art this semester.
Oh, I thought you said I have to go pee.
No, peek.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, you want to close her down then?
Sure thing.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, are people still listening to us?
I don't know. After all these years. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for listening to the Positively Midwest podcast. Our hope is to inspire, engage each other's thoughts, and leave you with some great advice. Be sure to join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram at Positively Midwest Podcast. Make sure you like, comment, share, and screenshot our podcast with all of your cool friends. Every little bit helps. We are on most all major platforms, and you can stream it on our website directly at positivelymidwest.com. Also, check out our merch in the online store. All proceeds go to help those find therapy or rehab. Please reach out to us at positivelymidwest@gmail.com if you'd like to look into therapy or rehab, or have any ideas or want to share stories. Thank you, and as always, please always stay positive.